Okay, let's, been wanting to use this thing ever since I've seen it. Welcome, call the meeting to order. Really excited, we've got some great topics to cover this evening. Our apologies for being a little late. We are talking about important topics, I think, to all of you, and you'll hear about some of those this evening. I think what we'd like to do, first of all, we need a motion to accept the draft minutes of the minutes of the last meeting.
Second.
Okay. In the interest of time also, and given that...
All in favor.
Oh, sorry.
Aye.
All in favor? Aye. In the interest of, I know it's AP season, we've got students here this evening. Also, we thought we'd have them speak right away so they can leave.
Yes, thank you, Michael.
Rachel?
Good evening, everybody. As you know, we made a commitment this year that at each of our public meetings, we would have a presentation on the Bronxville Promise in Action. The community and the leadership team and the teachers spent an extraordinary amount of time and energy on updating the language of the promise. And based on feedback we received from parents, you wanted to have a better handle on how that really plays out in our classrooms. And so tonight is another example of that. I'm going to ask Dr. Ketke to introduce our high schoolers this evening. This is quite an impressive bunch of students who have competed and are going to the national competition for History Day. So we wanted you to get just a little taste of that because it really hits on so many of our Bronxville Promise dispositions.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. So in 2014, I believe it was my first year in the Bronxville School District, Ms. Dana Landesman and Christina Rydell came to me about a program called National History Day, and I was very intrigued by their description of the program. At the same time, Jack Beerworth, who was a Board of Education member and a former superintendent of the Herrick School District on Long Island, had a lot of success with National History Day, and he also came to me about, the parameters and the context of this competition. In this case, National History Day, as Ms. Landesman will explain, was very well aligned to our Bronxville Promise, which at that point was in its infancy. It allowed choice for students in historical topics that they would study across a theme established by National History Day, and they were also permitted to show their learning in different products, including research papers, documentaries, exhibits, and even websites. So we proceeded with the program in 2014. And Ms. Landesman will present to you this evening along with students going to the national competition in Washington, D.C. And I believe this represents the best of what can happen when a district and a community commits to a program that grows over years to be a cornerstone of our curriculum and a wonderful opportunity for students to demonstrate historical thinking. So thank you very much, Ms. Landesman. Connie?
I'm so excited to be here tonight and to share the information about National History Day, the program that was implemented at our high school, and give you an opportunity to hear from some of our amazing students. Bronxville High School has been participating in National History Day program for 10 years now, and we've had a lot of success at each level of the competition and have seen positive outcomes and results for all students who participated in the competition. This program is built right into our 9th and 10th grade program. National History Day is a competition in which students have a lot of freedom and choice. They first are presented with a theme and asked to choose a topic. This year's theme was turning points. They are able to decide if they'd like to work alone or in a group, and what type of medium that they will showcase their researching. Performance, website, research paper, exhibit, or a documentary. Students have had the opportunity to dive deep into historical research in order to explore the past using many resources like library databases, archives, and interviews, just to name a few. Students move through the various levels of competition and have their work evaluated by external audiences. At each level of the competition, they are required to reflect on the feedback and revise their work. At our school, before we get to our Bronxville History Day, we actually do a thesis defense where the students in front of a panel of administrators, teachers, have to defend their research that they've been working on for the past 6 months. Our Bronxville History Day is for all 9th and 10th grade students to showcase their projects. And teachers and administrators serve as the judges and provide feedback for all students. From there, we go on to the lower Hudson Valley region, and then the New York State competition. And I'm very proud to say that out of 10 slots that are slated for New York State, we took 4 of them, which is really amazing. The research process is scaffolded for our students at both grade levels. However, a deeper instruction and modeling is provided to our 9th grade students. Students are required to submit weekly action plans where their task is assigned to them and what they have to complete. These are turned into their action plan folders, and all social studies teachers take turns reviewing all of the students' work for 9th and 10th graders to offer different insights or suggestions on Post-it notes to keep the lines of communication open with the kids. The Bronxville Promise provides teachers and students a lens in which to reflect on our teaching and learning, as well as guidelines for designing experience to support our students and prepare them for the world after they leave here. As you can see, these are a few examples of how our program supports the Bronxville Promise. This slide shows how National History Day supports preparing students for state exams. I can also, as the AP World History teacher, attest that the skills that are embedded into National History Day are the skills that the kids need to be successful on their AP exams. The entire history department is so grateful to the Bronxville School Foundation for all the support they have provided us in developing our National History Day program throughout the years. Because of the foundation's support, students have had the opportunity to work with various consultants to develop various skills. There are a few listed here on the slide. I cannot move on without acknowledging Jack Beerworth for his time and dedication and support, and also insight to the development of this program. And now I'm very excited to introduce Sebastian Zhu, who's going to share a little bit about his process here.
Yes. Hello everyone, my name is Sebastian Zhu. I'm a 9th grade student. My current social studies teacher is Ms. Gambino. I did my project on, as you can see there, the 1969 Sino-Soviet border conflict and Sino-American rapprochement. In my project, which is a paper, I argue using historical evidence, primary and secondary sources, that the 1969 Sino-Soviet border conflict served as the primary catalyst for Sino-American rapprochement, that being Nixon's visit to China in 1972 and the normalization of relations in 1978. I chose this topic primarily due to the close relationship that my family has to the Sino-Soviet border conflict. Both of my maternal grandparents were born in 1949, the same year as the foundation of the People's Republic of China and are Chinese citizens. They remember being around 20 years old when the border conflict began, and they remember the risk of nuclear war at the time. The border conflict was really similar to the Cuban Missile Crisis for the USSR and the People's Republic of China, insofar as the specter of nuclear war truly loomed over those two nations during the days of the border conflict. They stood at the brink of all-out conflict and nuclear annihilation. During my research into the border conflict, I found several particular facets that interested me. First of all was the fact that the border conflict is really not covered that much in Western academic literature and even in worldwide academic literature. And during my research, I found the leading historian, leading researcher of the 1969 Sino-Soviet border conflict, Dmitry Pushkin, who you can see in the upper corner of that slide right there. And Dmitry Ivanushkin, he unfortunately lives in Crimea, and due to the current Russo-Ukrainian war, he was unable to acquire certain research materials that would help him in deepening his understanding of the border conflict. Particularly, there's one book written by a team of Chinese authors and published in the United Kingdom in 2021 that he wanted to acquire, but he could not due to American sanctions on Russia. He couldn't purchase the book. However, once I got in contact with him, I volunteered to provide him some of these research materials, and I facilitated his research into the border conflict as well. National History Day has been of great significance to me due to the fact that it has allowed me to participate in higher level and deeper historical research. It's also connected me with professors such as Dmitry Ivanushkin and really allowed me to develop my project to the fullest point. I'm also extremely grateful to the Bronxville School Foundation for providing a wonderful performance coach in the form of Ms. Karen Damara and a wonderful advisor in the form of Dr. Jack Beerworth. I am excited for the next year's competition, which, as Ms. Lansman stated earlier, the theme is rights and responsibilities. That is all. Copies of my paper, if you would like to have them.
Thank you.
So,
I've read it.
thank you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Emma Yun, and I did an individual documentary this year. I'm currently a student of Ms. Lansman, love you, and I'm in her AP World History class. So, as you can see on the slide, the title of my project is Twin Flowers, the lives of Linnaeus and Solander as a taxonomic turning point. You are probably wondering right now, what does that even mean? Who is Linnaeus? Who is Solander? And what even is a taxonomic turning point? So I'm here to tell you. Carl Linnaeus was a Swedish botanist born in 1707. He was the inventor of binomial nomenclature. Binomial nomenclature, if you don't know what that is basically a system of scientific naming that is still in place today. It's still the international standard even today. Basically, before Linnaeus, there was no standard system of how we named plants and animals. You had a lot of different scientists from different walks of life, different parts of the world, who all addressed different specimens in different ways. A lot of the time, they'd take like 17 Latin words and combine them in hopes of that you would be able to identify from like a myriad of traits. And obviously, that wasn't the most efficient thing ever. It basically made it so that it was hard to transmit information about different specimens across different scientific communities. And Linnaeus wanted to change that. He invented a system where you had 2 Latin words, just 2, not 17, and you were able to standardize that across countries and across different languages, across different scientific communities. He revolutionized the way that taxonomists approach naming things today, and his system is still in use today. He's known as the founder of modern-day taxonomy. Okay, so who is Solander then? Linnaeus was not just a botanist, he was a teacher, and Solander was one of his most prominent students. Solander ultimately traveled with Captain James Cook to Tahiti. It was the first real botanic expedition in the Pacific, and upon his return, he increased the tally of plant species known to Europeans by 1/3. It was an entire region of the world that had never been explored before, and with his diligent efforts, he was able to help catalog it. He was the first Swede to circumnavigate the globe, and in the end, he explored physical frontiers, not just intellectual ones, bringing physical taxonomy beyond the bounds of which it had ever been before. Throughout my journey in this project, I explored a lot of secondary and primary sources. Secondary sources are basically secondhand accounts of information, while primary sources get right to the root, which is what I was most interested in. In primary sources, I found a lot of Linnaeus' own published works, as well as maps recorded by Captain James Cook, letters sent between Linnaeus and his correspondences, including Solander, and different specimens that were cataloged and still archived. They're available online today, but before they were held in the Linnaeus Society of London, as they still are today. This is actually very unique. Linnaeus, among his contemporaries, was one of the only ones whose works were largely preserved. A lot were largely lost to time, and not preserved after their original creator died. The Linnean Society was an essential resource to me, and as a result, I wanted to reach out to them. I thought that they could provide a lot of good perspective and information about my topic. I was very lucky to have a response from the Linnean Society, and I was able to interview Dr. Isabel Chalentier, who is on screen. She is the head of collections at the Linnean Society, and she provided a lot of interesting insight into not only Linnaeus' own life, but his impact in taxonomy and botany today. Overall, I am very grateful for the flexibility this project allowed me to pursue. The editing process for my documentary pushed me beyond the bounds of what I thought I was capable of. I have some experience in video editing, but nothing to the scale of what the project demanded of me. And I'm very grateful that the project allowed me the flexibility to not only choose a topic that I was interested in, but as Ms. Lennon said, to choose the medium upon which I wanted to pursue that. I am very grateful to the Bronxville School Foundation for allowing me to contact experts in these things, such as Mr. Morrow, who gave me the confidence in performance and in coaching me to be confident while speaking, and Mr. Cavelli, who is a documentarian who helped me throughout my editing process, and gave me a little bit of leeway on the learning curve. Overall, the takeaways from my project are astronomical. I found that I have a new appreciation for historical research and a new appreciation of how important it is to preserve history, like the Linnean Society, and like National History Day encourages students to today. We get to explore a topic of our choice and get to bring new light to it in a modern perspective from a student, not just a professional historian. I think I have a little clip of my documentary on the next slide, just like 30 seconds. But overall, this project was an amazing opportunity, and I'm so glad that I was able to do this project.
With a clear aim in his mind that by the end of his life, he's going to have classified the entirety of the natural world, and that starts from his early 20s.
In the Netherlands, he met Johann Friedrich Gronovius, an already established botanist from Leiden. Linnaeus showed Gronovius his drafts for a new work, Systema Naturae, that detailed Linnaeus' taxonomic system. Gronovius, impressed by Linnaeus' work, offered to help Linnaeus pay to get the book published and printed. Linnaeus accepted, and Systema Naturae was published in December of 1735. The two men would remain friends for decades to come.
With a clear aim in it.
My name is Emerson Dennis. I'm a 9th grader at Bronxville, and I thought maybe before we begin, you might want to have a couple copies of my research because National History Day is a research competition after all. And in there is my annotated bibliography and my process paper, which show all the research that I've done throughout the course of this year. NHG has been an invaluable experience for me as a student. No other project that I've ever done has been so difficult, yet so rewarding. From competing this year as a freshman and last year as an 8th grader, NHG has taught me how to research in depth and create a unique project independently. This year I researched illuminated manuscripts from Ireland in the early medieval ages, which is around the 800s and 900s. An illuminated manuscript is a Christian religious text which has these drawings in it, really intricate drawings that monks spent decades of their lives contributing to. So these are as significant as a turning point in history because this is the first time that illustration has been fused with literature. The illustrations in these texts help begin an expressive art movement throughout monasteries and to facilitate the spread of Christianity in Europe. I had to overcome the challenges of having a project from so many centuries ago. It was really hard for me to find first-hand primary sources because over the years, so many have been lost and destroyed. And I'd like to thank Ms. Landsman, Mr. Hamlis, and the rest of Bronxville's History Department for supporting me, encouraging me, and assisting me throughout this entire process. Another challenge that I had with this project was developing a historically accurate thesis because this topic is from so long ago. This is why I'm so grateful for the help of experts like Mr. Morrow. During my conversation with her, we strengthened my thesis and discussed how to present to the judges at States. The interview can really make or break a National History Day project, and Mr. Morrow gave me the confidence to present the best as possible. Visually, also with my project, I worked with Mr. Coe, who helped me brainstorm ideas about my exhibit. I handwrote my title and also drew all of those illustrations that you can see on my exhibit board, which is the one on the right. I took these illustrations directly from primary sources, such as the Book of Kells and the Book of Durrow, and I tried to replicate what the Celtic monks did. This took me a really long time to do, and I definitely gained a lot of empathy for the monks who spent lifetimes working on these crazy intricate books. I spent like a day doing this. This is crazy. So visually, I think that Mr. Coe really helped me make my exhibit the best it can be. Without Mr. Morrow and Mr. Coe and Bronxville's history department, I would never have made it this far in National History Day. And I'm so excited to travel to DC next month. Last year, when I won the national competition, I met so many students from around the world, from states like Alaska and Texas, and even from American schools in different countries like Thailand and South Korea. I made so many connections at nationals, and I'm so excited to go back and reestablish those connections and make new ones. Thank you.
Before this next group goes, I just want to let everybody know that they were asked to showcase their exhibit at this museum, the Smithsonian American History Museum.
Hi, I'm Louise Jacobs, that's Caroline Harder, and that's Virginia Shaw. We are in 10th grade in Miss Landsman's class, and for our project, we selected the Horn and Hardart Automat. So you may be wondering what even was an automat. So an automat was a chain of restaurants located in New York and Philadelphia in the 1900s, and this was different than any other restaurants that had been seen at this time. This was because instead of sitting at a table ordering off the menu with a waiter, like having a whole long meal, you would actually go up to these slots on the wall, put a nickel in, and get a piece of fresh food out.
This year's National History Day theme, Turning Points in History, we believe represents the Horn and Hardart Automat, as it provided high-quality food at a low price, which was significant in a time of financial struggle. It was also welcoming to various people of different socioeconomic backgrounds, and these ideals were emphasized in a customer handbook that we recreated and bound ourselves there on the bottom.
The Automat was especially significant because of the scene of America it was coming into during this time. America was going through great changes, like the introduction of women into the workforce, and the Automat even provided jobs for women at its time. There was also a surge of immigrants into the cities who needed places to work, which the Automat provided. And the Great Depression left a lot of people financially insufficient, but at the Automat they could grab some food that was affordable yet quality, and really anyone could enjoy it. And this was really something we hadn't seen before at the time because of a wealth gap.
So the Automat was recognized as a cultural icon. It was present in more than 17 movies and TV shows, and it was even given a little shout out in Marilyn Monroe's Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. This overall contributed to its lasting success and nostalgia that was associated with the brand.
So speaking of nostalgia, Howard Schultz, the former CEO of Starbucks, touched a lot upon how his direct inspiration for the company came from the Automat. So when you think of a Starbucks, you think of music, free Wi-Fi, and just an atmosphere that is inviting and wants you to sit there and enjoy your coffee. This is translated directly from the Automat, which had an Art Deco design and lots of tables where there was an open seating policy where people could sit with anyone they want and just enjoy their meal, which really shows that its lasting impact today.
My great-grandfather, Frank Hardart, was the co-founder of the Automat, so my group was super lucky and had access to resources that other groups may not have had on the subject. Also, because of this family connection, we had the opportunity to speak to my family members, such as Paul Hardart, who had more involvement with the family business. Growing up, I never truly appreciated the importance and the extent of the Automat's reach. However, through the NHD process, my friends and I all got the opportunity to learn about the important role the Automat had in the history of New York and Philadelphia.
We are so grateful for the many resources that we have had access to throughout this process, including a performance coach and a design consultant that we were so generously donated by the foundation.
National History Day has allowed us to research more rigorously than we ever have before. We accessed administrative files, interviews, New York Times, and New York Public Library archives. These research skills are transferable far beyond just NHD. The experience has taught us how to extensively research and become experts on a topic as unique, revolutionary, and personal to us as the Horn and Hardart Automat. Thank you.
Special thank you to Martin Patmos and Eva Gambino for their support of this program and taking it on with me. It's been great this year. And
they just need to get their and it's going to rain tomorrow and they don't want to take their house.
No, of course. Sorry.
Excuse them.
What an extraordinary job you all did. We sit here with such pride because we just put the ingredients out there and they just run with it. And we could not be more pleased and more proud with not only the skill set that they now have, but as was just stated, how these skills can generalize to the rest of your academic pursuits. And we couldn't be more proud to have you represent us at Nationals, so thank you.
For those of you who remain, of course, we have a special treat. We're going to adjourn the public hearing for the budget hearing. So it will be brief, but I want to give Dan the opportunity to present this. So I need a motion to adjourn the public meeting. To go to church.
Yes.
Motion.
Sarah and Peter and Sarah.
Okay. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So Dan.
Well, Dr. Kelly feels proud. I just feel old because I used to go to the Automat on 42nd We are in the final stages of the budget, culminating on May 21st with the referendum. This is a process that began in earnest in October with the board workshop sessions, and this public hearing is actually the last official step before the referendum. Next slide, please. We'll begin by looking at enrollment, which is the primary assumption which this budget is based. Enrollment is projected to be steady as it has been over the last 3 years, but in a longer, slightly declining trend. It would be nice if all the reductions were on a single grade level, and we could reduce a section here or there with no impact on class size, but it doesn't necessarily work that way. It seems that over the last few years, the high school has remained stable, while the elementary school has increased and the middle school has decreased. Next slide, please, Connie. So after a few meetings, work sessions over the winter, and board meetings, we came in with a proposed budget, which was adopted by the board, of $53,903,298, resulting in a tax levy of $47,588,298. The percentage tax levy increase is 2.14%, which is right at our tax levy cap. It's actually $82 under it. So we were able to come in under the cap. There's a number of districts in Westchester that are actually looking to override the cap. We are not one of those this year. Next slide, please, Connie. This is a comparison of tax levy changes and budget changes over the last 10 years or so. It actually goes back further than that, it's more like 20 years. But over the last 10 years, you can see that, actually 15 years, you can see that this current change is really in line with changes we've had since 2009, 2010. When boards really look to control both budget and tax levy increases. And they've been consistent ever since. Next slide, please. The pie chart is a visual representation of how we actually spend our money. As you can see, the blue shaded areas are about 75% of our budget and consists of salaries and benefits for our staff to run the school. Beyond that, our next largest areas are expenditures for services we contract for. Being a small district, we rely on contractors for a lot of things we can't handle ourselves, such as security, cleaning, insurance, transportation, etc. Debt service and BOCES costs for a myriad of services, such as running our technology network, purchasing hardware and software, professional development, and some other educational services. After all of that, the rest of the budget is only about 5%, and it consists of supplies, equipment, textbooks, legal fees, special education tuition costs for students whose needs we can't meet in our school. Next slide, please, Connie. In calculating the impact on taxpayer in terms of the tax rate, we begin with our proposed levy and divide that by the assessment roll. That assessment roll is up almost 5% to $3.47 billion to get a tax rate of $13.72 per thousand of assessed value, which is how the state requires us to express the tax rate. The 2.69% reduction in the rate from 2023 to 24 is due to the percent increase in the assessment roll being higher than the projected increase in the levy. Based on the 24-25 rate and the levy where it sits now, a property owner whose property is assessed at $2 million in 2023 is paying $28,189 in school taxes, while a homeowner whose property value is assessed at $2 million in 2024 will pay $27,430 in school taxes. I would advise all residents to see if their assessment has changed compared to the prior year. Obviously, that would be a major factor as well. Next slide is a historical perspective on the tax rate. The projected rate is in line with what we've seen over the last 10 years, which has consistently been in the $13.3 to $14.3 per thousand of assessed value range. Next slide, please, Connie. We expect to end the year in a favorable fund balance condition compared to prior years. This has been planned by the board over the last few years to address capital needs and other concerns as identified by our architects and as allowed by the state with the addition of some reserves. Our 5-year capital plan that we reviewed with the architects has totaled about $50 million in identified needs. The facilities committee is trying to cull that down into a workable capital project. We expect it to be significantly lower as we prioritize it, but there is a capital project coming down the road as we address infrastructure in our 100-year-old building. If these surpluses grow as we close out the year, it would increase this number. Conversely, if we finish the year with less than we anticipate, it would reduce this figure. To reiterate, we're looking at the likelihood of addressing capital needs, and I would anticipate that the Finance Committee might recommend that any surplus fund balance be allocated to the Capital Projects Reserve or our Teachers Retirement System Reserve. And the Finance Committee meets every June to discuss reserve allocation. One more slide, I think. A couple more. The budget includes 3 planned multi-year contracts or leases for our network copiers, private school transportation, and our technology installment purchase agreement through BOCES to continue our replacement cycle for Chromebooks, computers, and other technology infrastructure items. We're required to point these items out annually in our budget document, and I'm doing so here in the interest of transparency. The photocopy contract was bid competitively 4 years ago, and we'd be entering the last year of that contract, so we bid it out again next year for the following year. The transportation contract was bid competitively last year and will be extended with a CPI increase this year. And the BOCES installment purchase of technology equipment is executed under either competitive bidding requirements or New York State contract pricing. And finally, we're also planning for the purchase of an additional school bus should it become more cost-effective to manage our own route for private school students versus contracting out. We think we might be able to save some money there, so we're going to see if we can do that over the summer plan, running our own route. Next slide, please. The referendum this May will also include a proposition to use up to $1.3 million of our $5.4 million capital projects reserve for the construction of a pavilion-like shelter to protect our flood pumps and the construction of a security vestibule at our main entrance on Pondfield Road, right by the flagpole there, right below us. More on the vestibule funding a little later. And finally, Connie, the referendum and the board election is on Tuesday, May 21st, from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. in the Blue Gym by the Meadow Avenue entrance. And we encourage all residents of the village to come out and vote. As I mentioned, there's also additional referendum question regarding the expansion of our capital, the expansion of the security vestibule and the flood pumps. So we encourage everybody to come out and vote on those.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Okay, so at this stage, we open this for public comment. If you have a comment, please state your name. This time of the meeting, this is really specific to the budget, because we will reconvene the regular meeting. So if anybody have questions or anybody online? Connie? Nobody? Okay. All right. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Do I need a motion to? Okay, so let's just reconvene the regular meeting, and we're going to the superintendent's comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I'm glad that you followed the student presentations and I didn't. Good evening, Bronxville community. I'd like to use my portion of this evening's meeting to comment on a few recent developments within our school community. The first topic is 6th grade Latin. Due to personnel, scheduling challenges, fiscal considerations, and declining enrollment overall, and particularly in Latin, the leadership team and I had recommended not to offer Latin in 6th grade next year. Those students already enrolled in Latin would have the opportunity to continue in Latin until their high school graduation if they chose to do so. Parents expressed concerns about this decision, and I offered to meet with a representative group to hear their concerns in person. Following that meeting, I committed to researching more alternatives for the fall. After doing so, the leadership team and I spoke with the Board of Education. As a result, I will delay my decision to eliminate Latin for next year's 6th grade class, and we will offer, I see some smiles, And we will offer one section of 6th grade Latin in the fall. This is possible due to the number of students who expressed interest, enough for one section, the ability to run this single section without throwing off the balance of the schedule for other students, as well as securing a Latin teacher who's qualified to teach this section. Next year's 6th grade Latin students will have the opportunity to continue in Latin through their high school graduation if they choose to do so. Having said that, I cannot guarantee that we will continue to offer 6th grade Latin come the fall of 2025. As done this year, the multiple data points, including overall enrollment, budget, sectioning, and student interest, as well as personnel availability, will drive the decision prior to me making a recommendation to the Board of Education next year. My next topic is cell phones. We are fully aware that many parents have been exposed to John Haidt's new book, The Anxious Generation: How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness, and how parents have pledged to delay purchasing cell phones for their children until at least 8th grade. We appreciate seeing a community of parents come together in this way. We have cell phone policies currently for each of our 3 schools. Cell phones are not permitted in our elementary school, and if students are sent to school with cell phones, they're required to keep them in their locker. In our middle school, cell phones are required to be kept in their lockers. In the high school, cell phones are not permitted in classes, and in many cases, particularly when assessments are given, teachers will have high school students park those cell phones in containers upon entry into the classroom. Students violating this policy are given detention. Anecdotally, I can assure you that rampant cell phone use during class does not exist in our school. Having said that, we are an open campus beginning 7th grade, and patrolling cell phones use both between classes and when students are on free periods or at their lunch period off campus is an unreasonable expectation. The leadership team plans to review both our current policies as well as our current practices to determine what, if any, changes need to be made. Partnering with our parent community remains a priority, and I have already begun conversations with our PTA leadership to discuss pathways to do so. As I mentioned at last month's April board meeting, this will be a topic on our June board agenda, which gives me the time I need to hear from our educators, our parents, and our students prior to reporting out about what will be our next steps. So as always, I appreciate your patience. Now on to our personnel agenda. I've been told it's Teacher Appreciation Week. I'd be remiss not to take a moment and thank all of our faculty and staff for the tremendous work they do day in and day out on behalf of all of our students. We are so fortunate to have this extended school family, and I can't think of a better group of educators I'd rather work with each and every day. Thank you for making my job of leading this school that much easier due to your commitment to all things the Bronxville School. And the board has before them tonight's personnel agenda. And the first resolution I'd like you to consider is accepting the resignation of Mr. Marcellus Lassane, who is our assistant principal of our middle and high schools, for the purpose of retirement. Marcellus has been in our school district for 24 years. He was actually our very first assistant principal on the secondary level, and he has really made that position his own. What we are particularly impressed with is his relationships with the students and how he so masterfully is able to build relationships with them as well as discipline them, and really has taken advantage of teachable moments with our students. So we will have another opportunity to celebrate Marcellus, but I did just want to take a moment and thank him for his dedicated service to our school. In addition, you have 2 teacher resignations, as well as a new counselor appointment, as well as a 3rd grade teacher. There will be a couple of more new hires that you will see on the May 21st board agenda. In addition, we have a teacher aide resignation, as well as a new substitute teacher and substitute teacher aide. If you could please consider resolutions A through H this evening.
Motion to approve these resolutions?
Motion.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Back to Dan.
There is no update for
Excellent.
finance this month because we're very early. We haven't closed the books for April yet. So there is no budget update. However, there are a few financial action items, and I'll review them briefly. Action item A is approval of the property tax report card, which is required by the state education department. It includes a lot of the information that we just reviewed in the budget hearing. The second is authorization for the board president to sign the engagement letter for our independent audit, which we do every year. I think what we'll look to do this year, since we approved the auditor at the reorganization meeting, we'll just, I think going forward, we'll probably put that authorization to sign the engagement letter in that resolution. But since it wasn't done at the last reorganization meeting, we're doing it now. And then just wow, the Bronxville School Foundation. Well over $600,000 for basically our R&D and infrastructure. There's 24 spring cycle grants totaling $268,232. A special education designated fund grant for equine assisted learning in the amount of $7,300. An off-cycle grant for a Harlan Cohen speaking engagement in the amount of $4,000. And then, as we discussed a little bit before, another off-cycle grant for funding of part of the funding for the security vestibule at the flagpole entrance on Pondfield Road in almost $30,000.
300.
You know, $300. I'm sorry, $330,000.
Wow.
But that, I mean, the total is well over $600,000, which is just, you know,
Breathtaking.
automatically we just say with eternal gratitude to the foundation. But I mean, seriously, that's the support we get from them is just incredible.
So we need a motion to approve the property tax report card, the independent audit, and the Bronxville School Foundation grants. I'll repeat Dan's conviction. We are so grateful to the foundation and for the work they do for the school and their generosity. It's quite extraordinary. So, motion to approve these action items. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Moving on to facilities, as I mentioned before, pump shelter to prolong the useful life of the pumps, keeping them out of the elements as originally specified when we installed them, and the security vestibule additional funding are both on the ballot. So I would encourage everybody to go vote for them. You may have noticed a lot of activity going on the front lawn. The PTA, the village, some of our own budget, we're looking to a bunch of different sources to kind of do a renovation of Pondfield Road. It started with the hedgerow. It continued with the installation of irrigation system. And then over the next 2 years or so, we'll probably look to renovate the sidewalk and a lot of different plantings that'll give us a lot of color over the next, year-long color on the front lawn, which has been sorely lacking. So we just received yesterday some renderings that will circulate very widely. We'll put them up on the website and get them printed and, send them to anybody who wants them to take a look at the plan of what we're trying to do. And I think it's important to note that more than probably the majority of what's going on out there will be accomplished through private funding over that time. And lastly, busing. We've had limited issues with athletic busing over the winter and spring, knock on wood. Although we probably are anticipating the same sort of problems we've seen over the last few years in the fall just seems to be tougher because the days get shorter versus getting longer, and we have to start games earlier versus the ability to start them later as the season goes along. But, we're going to do whatever we can, including, an additional bus, which hopefully we'll be able to use for some athletic runs as well. If it's feasible, to generate our own private school run to save money there as well. We're always trying to put as much as we can of our resources into the classroom, and hopefully, if we can cut down some, contracted services areas, we can either, use that to reduce the tax levy or use it in some other area.
Okay. Thank you. I think we're on to just any committee reports. I don't know, PTA, I know we talked about facilities. Maybe Dan, if there was anything else in facilities first.
We haven't had a meeting yet. I think audit committee, we're trying to get a meeting together to review the updated risk assessment. Right. Which is late this year because about a week before it was due, the person who was creating it at Cherry Beckart left. Okay. And so there has been staff turnover there. So we finally have a draft that will circulate and hopefully put together a Zoom audit committee with them to review it next week. Okay. I know we've already, I think on our curriculum committee, we've already talked about Latin Foundation. I don't know if you want to add anything, Nikki?
I'll add one point. So we talked about the generous donations that we've gotten from the foundation this year in the latest grant cycle, and it is truly tremendous. Everyone knows the hard work that goes behind that with the foundation. But what I don't know that everyone knows is that the work that we do at the school is not possible without the work that the foundation does. We work closely together. And it's really important that as we all think about that one of the things that we're trying to do at the foundation is get to 100% participation in our fund drive. And that fund drive is happening right now, and all of us can go to the website and participate. So that's the only comment I wanted to make. Thank you to the foundation for the work that they do, and I can't wait to see all of these grants come to life.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay. I think before we go to the public comment, just want to remind everybody, I know Dan mentioned it earlier, May 21st, it's the annual budget vote, board election. That evening, it'll include the close of the polls and results. But please do vote because more importantly than the two non-contested candidates, we'd like to see everyone's participation in the budget vote. That'd be great to see from the community, high participation. With that, I think we'll go to public comment. I know we've got a lot of our neighbors here. If you want to speak, please state your name, and we welcome anybody to get started. Anyone out there? Sure, come on.
Hi, everybody. Oh, thank you. I'm Kate Milliken-Boyd. My son is Tanner, who is in 8th grade. My daughter is Maddox Boyd. wanted to start by saying that I have a really nasty Instagram Reels habit at night, and I'm working on making it better by reteaching myself how to read. And wouldn't you know it, without even knowing this is the trending book, this is the one that I had. And I just wanted to paraphrase a couple sentences in the first chapter of Jonathan Haidt's books, which is called The Surge. The chapter is called The Surge of Suffering. The stories parents tell me continually talk about the constant conflict story. Parents try to lay down rules and enforce limits, and they try to find so many ways around the rules. Maintaining family rituals and basic human connections can feel like resisting an ever-rising tide, one that engulfs parents as well as children. And I want to add teachers to that mix because I actually can speak from personal experience. A couple of years ago, I actually was lucky enough to teach an entire semester at the Bronxville school. I did a high school video production class. And I was super excited about it. I asked the students that I worked with not to use their cell phones from the moment they came in for the class. Number one, because I really wanted them to absorb all of these incredible people I was bringing in to talk about their experience in film and television. And the other was because I wanted them to have the moment before the class started where they could actually get to know each other, because it has been proven that is where people make connections. And perhaps out of the 15 classes that I taught, I would say at least 14 I caught somebody on a cell phone. And I remember feeling so frustrated as a volunteer and a teacher, and I also felt really sad as a person who remembered school. And I remembered being a kid, and even when I was bored in class, I had to on some level be present, and it was immersive. So I'm the first to say that I don't know anything really about how a school is run. I'm privileged enough to have people on the board who I consider friends, who have made it clear that it can be a slow, incremental process. And I think that there are a lot of schools, a lot of systems in the world that work that way. Healthcare being one of them, which is one of the most famous industries to just move at a snail's pace. And that all changed with COVID, because those people decided that they were going to put convention aside and they were going to fast track to a potential solution. COVID is a condition that appeared out of nowhere, that has possibilities of serious fatalities, that has very severe and unpredictable symptoms, and that affects everyone in the world. Doesn't that sound familiar to what this issue is today? COVID internally actually can create a cytokine storm, which means that all your systems begin to not run properly and they malfunction. And I believe that our students and our children are stepping into a cytokine storm with their emotional dysregulation, with mental health issues, and also academic distraction. Now, if there's one thing I can say that was pretty awesome that happened with COVID, it was the Bronxville school who was able to stay open in the fall of 2020. I cannot express how much I appreciate what you guys did and how you did it. And it proved that you guys can actually change the pace if you need to. So I came here only as one voice. I came by myself. I did rally a couple of people here. I didn't even know there were petitions out there. But I know that parents are really talking about this. And all I want to do is ask you lovingly is to hurry, please, and really think about a next solution. And perhaps, Dr. Kelly, you could use this time in the next month to really find out whether or not kids in middle school with their cell phones are really in control and handling that. I think it would be worth you exploring that. Whether or not it's actually phones that get put in baskets for classrooms, or whether or not you guys do the leather pouches that you end up having the whole school not having cell phones, whatever works best for your incredibly hardworking team, we get it. I know us parents sometimes can be a pain in the ass, I'll own it. But I do feel that on this subject, we really want to be collaborative and helpful and try to make this as fast as possible, prevent and stop the surge of suffering. Thanks.
Thank you. I assure you that the board and the leadership team is taking this topic very seriously. As a father of 2 high school students, I know your pain. You know, it is. I empathize. So really, thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Any Any other? Go ahead, please. And please state your name.
Hi, I'm Carly Fraser-Doria. I'm just here to introduce my daughter who wanted to speak but wanted a little bit of an introduction. But first wanted to start out by thanking you, Dr. Kelly, and everyone else for listening to the parents and students on the issue of sixth grade Latin. I know many of us felt very passionately about it and appreciate that the rising sixth graders will have that opportunity to take Latin. I hope in future years to come as well. I know my daughter is a Latin student and would like to speak a little bit about the importance of Latin to her middle school experience.
So I was going to talk about like some of the reasons that we should have continued Latin, but since you have like already stated that you would continue it for the next 6 graders, there's not really much more to say. So I still wanted to talk a little bit about why it's important. So when I was researching about this, I realized, and on like it's shown that SAT scores go up by 67 points for kids taking Latin compared to kids taking other languages, because Latin like helps people or helps students and kids with thinking and reading and like creativity. And so I just wanted to say thank you for your decision.
Thank you. We love hearing from students, so thank you for doing that.
Are there any other comments? Going once, going twice? Anything online? Brad? Okay. Thank you so much for coming. Again, we apologize for being a little delayed. We hope you gained something from the meeting, and certainly if you have any other questions or comments, feel free to contact us individually. Have a great evening. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay.